Okay, so in my organisation, we believe we are probably 6 years away from being able to go electric for 44 tonnes. What's your view on that timeline? There's got to be one for you, David.
44 tonne is possible now. You can operate that. We have a 3-axle tractor unit, but it's a case of what is the payload you can carry at that. Currently, we're seeing a 3-tonne loss for a 6x2 electric tractor unit versus its diesel equivalent. So lobbying is taking place to get government to increase that so we can actually carry the same payload without losing any efficiency.
Thank you very much. Next question, please.
We'll wait for the next one to come up. I'll just give my view on that.
Jump in. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think we see biomethane has been looked at as a transition fuel, and so you can either look at it in two ways. That biomethane could support you for the next 3 purchase cycles, or you could have it for the next 1 purchase cycle. So while the EV infrastructure is scaling up, there's a biomethane option there that would be able to support you without the payload loss and with the range. I guess the other thing that, from our perspective, is we don't benefit from any grants. The costs of the truck have to work from a total cost of ownership, and they do. The trucks, the gas trucks they're within reach of most operators. You're looking at about a 15 to 20k on cost for a gas truck, but you will get the saving within the first 2 years. If you're buying them, you'll get the saving immediately for leasing them over 5 years. So it could be a transition fuel while EV scales up from the infrastructure perspective.
Thank you very much. So we've only had 1 or 2 questions. So I don't know whether we've got any questions in the room. Would anyone prefer to ask a question from the room? Pause there a moment, although you're louder than me, you might want the mic.
Yeah, I'm a contractor, work on behalf of the military, who have significantly number of electric vehicles. And I will say that it has had an impact on the business, which has created issues as opposed to reducing the issues, because we have small tail lift vans that used to have 600 kg that can only now carry 250 kg. We have their contractor, which is All-Star, who is our charging system, which is minimum facilities around the UK and always struggling. So I understand electric is the way forward, but it's got a long, long way to go in order to enhance transport businesses to take it on, because there's added issues that they have when it comes to the payload, etc., that they need to achieve.
David, do you want to respond to that?
I think a lot of people centre on the grid connection and obviously the payload for good reason. But when you actually look at certain sectors where electrification is suitable, in my position, trying to sell electric vehicles, as I say to my customers, you don't need to go straight to 42 tonne, which is what we can do with a 4x2 at the moment. We all have a 2 tonne dispensation to make for some of the payload offset that we lose, which we currently don't have on a 3-axle tractor unit. But the majority of our customers are not payload sensitive. For them, it's either volume, it's just basically getting a truck from A to B as reliable as possible. So from taking that first step, it's not a huge investment in terms of a 32 amp socket, 22 kilowatt capability of the vehicle. We're talking about sort of pallet networks which are doing 60 to 80 miles per day. It's well within the capability of the vehicle and the infrastructure just to try that first vehicle. And as you're getting that experience in those first couple of years, the grid is playing catch up. And the solutions that are coming to the market now to provide grid insufficiencies, battery energy storage systems attached to solar panels on your warehouse, they're all giving you greater freedom to access to cleaner and a low-cost energy solution to put into your vehicles. So whilst the solution isn't there, by the end of this year, we will still see a massive infrastructure investment on electrification to the point where there'll be depots all over the UK network by the end of this year, which is all part of the government ZHID programme, where there'll be both semi-public and public charging infrastructure at many locations on the major trunking network.
Thanks, David. Do you want to add anything to that, Richard?
It's very difficult, because I think whenever I speak, I tend to knock EV, and we're not knocking EV at all. It is an energy mix. As we say, that it's choosing the right truck for the right route and the right the right need for your business. I think, we're keen to see the government create more charging infrastructure, because as an industry we need to decarbonise. EV can't do it on their own. We can't do it on our own. It needs to be a combined choice. I think what we'd like to see is that the government is sharing those subsidies around the whole market. To be fair to the manufacturers, and you mentioned in your presentation, you're having to put a lot of R&D into battery electric, into hydrogen, into gas, into diesel, that actually become really expensive for the manufacturers now. We're 10 years ago, you would just be looking at R&D for a diesel truck. Now you've got to spend millions on all these different things, because governments across Europe can't really make their mind up on what the answer is. So I think what really needs to happen is, as an industry, and as our industry bodies and the government need to get a little bit more coordinated in terms of actually what is the strategy, because it can't just be a golden bullet. It can't just be EV, because the infrastructure isn't there. And so the amount of energy that we'll need to charge all our trucks, it's not just trucks that are going to demand that energy. It's all the AI data centers. It's all the homes that are going to be using air source heat pumps. There's going to be a lot of power required for the grid. So it needs to be a mix. It needs to be thought about in a much broader context.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask a question to Adrian from our pre-supplied questions. Adrian, what are the risks of relying on AI for compliance decision making, and how can they be mitigated? This sort of ties into our own presentation, so I'm bringing you into that.
It's a great question. What we find is a lot of customers who are looking today at how they run and look at their compliance, often it's perceived, as I said earlier, as a hurdle, and it's not seen for a true competitive advantage if you understand the regulations, the challenges your organisation is facing, and you approach it in a very clear manner. For us, what we are seeing is AI is starting to make inroads in taking away some of the repetitive, mundane compliance problems and the risk management side of things. But what it doesn't do, importantly for me, is take away the human from the loop. And that's a really important bit, that your expertise in transport law and the advisors and around regulation compliance, it will help you with doing the analytics and the analysis of the vast amount of data you have. But importantly, it doesn't take you out of the loop individually. And for us, where we see the future moving forward is that we're seeing that the AI is maturing in what it can do for you, delivering better results because it's trained on better data, and therefore it frees up your time to really focus on the things that add more value to your organisation.
It's about minimising time management whilst allowing some time for supervision.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to ask the question from the board, which has come from the room. This is really for you, Richard. With the biomethane being produced within Europe and separates from the oil industry, why is the price following oil?
Okay, I'll put my economics hat. I'm an operator. I'm not an economist. We have some very intelligent people who do our pricing, who are paid lots of more money than me. The answer is gas doesn't follow the oil price. It just so happens that it has gone up at the same rate. The reason for that is that 25% of the oil and gas out of the global market comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So ultimately, the impact for gas and oil has been that they both have increased at roughly the same percentages. Yes, biomethane is produced in Europe, and in theory, it should be, you could say actually it's got its own raw material, so it shouldn't be linked to the price of normal wholesale gas, but it is. It's the same that if we took oil out of the North Sea to try and protect the UK and our supply, you can take as much oil out of the North Sea as you want, but the price will still be the same because it's based on the oil market. Same with gas. So gas is priced based on the gas market, the wholesale gas market. So our biomethane is priced exactly the same way as normal gas would be. The interesting thing about gas is that there are more gas fields coming online globally, which will, with more supply coming in, it will push the price of gas down, which is why we're expecting to see gas fall by about 15 pence a kilo over the next 5 years.
Thank you very much. Have we got time for one more? How long does a full charge take on a 44-ton EV, David?
Depends how many batteries you've got on it. Yeah, you could be running a 2 or 3 shift operation, utilising 3 battery packs with about 315 kilowatt hours, and still achieving 800 kilometres a day in terms of distance covered with those trucks. If they're coming back to base, you can charge them quickly when they're being loaded before they go back out again. I think the misnomer of how long does it take to charge is quite a difficult one to sort of put across to our customers. Charge at each opportunity that you have is the message that we give. In terms of time, if you're looking at pure from 20 to 80% with a 325 kilowatt charger, you're looking at possibly 45 minutes to put that sort of charge into it. But there's now technology out there that will bring that down by half when we have MCS or megawatt charging systems. So it really depends on the size of the battery packs that you have. And currently we're seeing pack sizes going up to probably 600 kilowatt hours are probably the largest ones that we have. But as I say, the chargers that are being installed on the infrastructure network at the moment are roughly in the 360, 400 kilowatt size, but they will increase in size over the next couple of years.
The trade-off is weight, isn't it, basically, because the more battery you have, the lower the payload on the vehicle. So you're trying to increase the capacity whilst maintaining a decent payload on the vehicle.
And that's why the consultation at the early start is important. A lot of people that made the initial decision wanted to go for the biggest battery pack to take away the range anxiety. But with the AI technology that we have in terms of route planning and making efficient use of the charger size, the depot infrastructure investment, and actually the number of batteries needed on the truck, will make customers more confident in downsizing those batteries to one that's more suitable. I think the whole ownership cycle of trucks is going to change tremendously over the next few years. We're all used to 3, 4, 5, 6 year operating cycles. With the fewer moving components on an electric truck, we're looking into maybe 8, 10, 12 year operating cycles becoming the norm rather than the exception. So I think the investment required will be amortized over a longer period, but it's actually making that decision right in the first place in terms of the size of the batteries, which will then, as you say, impact the payload.
Do you agree, Adrian, that by the adoption of electric vehicle alongside artificial intelligence, that might enable businesses to have a smaller battery potentially because they're visiting sites?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you made a great point there, David. What we are seeing on average when companies, and many of you have already done this, use AI for route optimization, it does an immediately between 8 and 15% on fuel reduction. And to your point, David, it gives people greater confidence about that battery anxiety as well. And so we are seeing a real balance now where people are moving from experimenting with AI to actually implementing it to a business strategy that enables EVs, for example, to become a reality. And I think this is going to take time, but we've already seen that already with some of the announcements that David has mentioned about some of the charging mechanisms coming down the line, I think it's going to become more and more prevalent for us. But not to say I think EV is just the only answer. I think, again, with what Richard's saying with LGN and biomethane, that really is a suitable alternative as well. But I do think technology, whatever the fuel source is going to underpin how the businesses perform better and drive operational efficiencies.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more? One more? AI seems to be the way forward for compliance, but the industry seems to be populated by a generation that resists change. What can be done to break down barriers and encourage people to embrace AI? Adrian, you're laughing. Have you heard this before?
I'm laughing because I think I'm one of the old people they're referring to.
I think that's me as well. Yeah,
it's a great question because that reluctance to embrace AI is understandable. You open a newspaper or read a website, it talks about job losses. For me, what's really important is 70 years ago, 70% of the jobs that exist today didn't exist 70 years ago. Things are always changing, always evolving. And I think for me, this is where the leaders in this room play a role, because AI and technology is here. It won't go away. The genie's kind of been let out of the bottle, but it's how we embrace it. And as I said before, that human in the loop doesn't mean we just put over all decisions to AI. It's for us to embrace it and be curious. And if we can lead the way, and we've got clear plans for AI, encourage people to actually trial it, play with it, experiment with it as well, and use it safely in so much as your data and you know where it is. I think what we will see is people who are being reluctant will come to the table. And without being too pessimistic, the alternative is not great. Because if you're not doing and embracing AI and technology as part of your organisation, whether that's trying to do operational efficiencies or risk management, you will get left behind, and your business will. So I think it's one of those that, it's tough, it's difficult, but this is where coming to an event like this where you learn is brilliant. And big kudos to everyone in the room, because for me, it's about trialling, not being afraid of it, seeking out support, technical expertise, and therefore you can really make your business a success.
A stark warning there for all of us oldies. So thank you very much to Adrian, to David, to Richard for taking the time out to come and speak to us all. I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute break, just a comfort break, and then we're going to come back and hear from our next guest speaker. So thank you to our panel. Much appreciated. See you in 10 minutes.